In this demonstration, we're going to talk about how to associate a wireless network interface in a workstation system, such as this Windows 7 workstation that you see here, with a wireless access point to connect to its wireless network. Now, on this Windows 7 system, I've already installed and configured a wireless network interface adapter via a USB port. In fact, if I click on the Start button, right-click on Computer and select Manage, and then come over here and click on Device Manager. Under Network Adapters, you can see that I have the WNA3100 N300 wireless USB adapter. Now, there is a second wireless network interface card installed in the system. This is an older one. It's installed in the PCI slot, and it's only an 802.11g wireless adapter, and hence I have disabled it to install a nice new 802.11n wireless network adapter that can run up to 300 megabits per second. Really nice. So, it's already installed, but it's not connected to any wireless networks. Let's go ahead and walk through the process of doing that. Now, if I were connected to a wireless network already, I would see a wireless icon down here in my notification area, and after clicking on that icon, it would bring up a list of all of the available wireless networks that could be detected by the wireless network interface card, and we could connect to one of those by clicking the Connect button. The key thing to remember about that option is the fact that if you have a wireless network that is not broadcasting, which is the case for our demonstration, then you won't see that wireless network displayed in the list. And in addition, this wireless network interface card has just barely been installed in the system, and hence it's not connected to any wireless networks, and therefore we have no icon down here in our notification area. You will notice that there is a wired network icon down here, and that's just done for recording purposes. Just pretend that this workstation is going to connect to the wireless network, and we don't have a wired network going. Now, in order to connect our wireless network interface card to a wireless network, click on Start. We'll go over, and you can either go into Control Panel to go to the Network and Sharing Center, or you can right-click on Network and select Properties, which also takes us to the Network and Sharing Center, which you see here. Now, once again, we have a wired connection, which allows us to have internet access right now. Just ignore that for our purposes today. We have two different options for connecting our wireless network card to a wireless network. We can either come over here to Manage Wireless Networks, and that works just fine, or you can also come down here under Change Your Network Settings to the option that reads Set up a new connection or network. Let's use this option for now. We have several different options here. One of the options is manually connect to a wireless network. Now notice under the title here, the text reads connect to a hidden network or create a new wireless profile. Now in a previous demonstration, we set up a new wireless access point that was connected to the internet, and we implemented various security measures on that access point, such as hiding the SSID. Well, that's the access point we want to connect to in this demonstration, and because the SSID is not being broadcast, we need to use this option right here, manually connect to a wireless network. Click Next. In the network name field, I enter the SSID of the wireless network I want to connect to. In this case, it is 876WLAN. Then we have to specify what type of security is being used on that network, and it uses WPA2 reshared key or WPA2 personal, same thing. It uses AES for encryption. If your wireless network used TKIP instead of AES, you could select it here, but I happen to know that this network uses AES. And then I have to enter in the pre-shared key for this wireless network that's using WPA2. Notice that by default, as I type, those characters would be displayed. For security best practices, it's a really good idea to turn on the option here to hide the characters. So in case somebody's shoulder surfing, they won't be able to see what key is being used for this wireless network. The problem with this option is that it makes it really difficult for some users to get the right pre-shared key entered in, because as a good security practice, you should use a pre-shared key that is not a dictionary word, that is long, and that contains numbers as well as letters to make it more difficult to guess the pre-shared key passphrase. Therefore, by hiding the characters, you increase the likelihood that you're going to type something wrong. But it's still a good idea to do. Let's see if we can do it correctly here while the characters are hidden. So let's enter in. We have the option down here to start this connection automatically. In other words, every time the system boots up and the driver for the wireless network board is loaded and the device starts, we want to automatically connect to this wireless network. That's a good thing. And we need to turn this option on right here, which configures this wireless interface to connect to the wireless LAN even if it's not broadcasting, which is the case here. For the 876 wireless LAN, the access point is configured to not broadcast the SSID. Go ahead and hit Next. And we have successfully added the 876 wireless network. Close. In this screen, we can specify whether this wireless network is a public network, whether it's a work network, or whether it's a home network. Basically, the security used for a public network is a lot higher than if we selected a work or a home network. The idea being that if it's a public network, there's a lot of other people on that public network, and they might be trying to get into your system or intercept your communications. So we need to implement the most security measures possible, whereas the work network, for example, is assumed to be a little bit more safe. Now, in this situation, we are using a work network, and so I'm going to click that option, click Close, and there's our wireless network. Now, once again, the NTI network that you see down here is a wired connection. This is, again, only connected for recording purposes. This is the network connection that we want to deal with. If we come over here, under Connections, we can click on the wireless network connection, and we can view its properties. We can see the SSID. We can see the speed. Notice over here that we have a little icon with a series of bars that tells us the strength of the signal that we're getting for this wireless network. In this situation, this host that has this wireless network interface plugged into it is just a couple of feet from the access point for the 876 wireless LAN, and hence we're getting a fantastic connection. We have great signal quality. But you can use this little icon here to tell how strong the signal is. Now notice that because we are connected to the 876 wireless LAN, that we have an icon down here in the notification area for this wireless connection. And if I click on it, we can see which networks we're currently connected to. And again, this is the wired connection up here. Just ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. But down here, we're connected to the 876 wireless LAN, and we have internet access. And if I scroll down, you can see all of the wireless networks that are currently within range that this wireless network board was able to detect. We're connected currently to 876 wireless LAN. If I needed to disconnect for some reason, I could come down here and click on it and then click Disconnect. We're not going to do that, but we could if we needed to. Notice also that the strength of each of these networks that the wireless network board is receiving a signal from is shown over here using the same bar graph, indicating how strong the signal is. You can see that MyQuest 1159 has only a fair signal. Notice also that as I hover over each of these, the details associated with each network is displayed. For example, with MyQuest 1159, we can see what the SSID is, MyQuest 1159. We can see what type of security is being used, WPA2 pre-shared key, signal strength fair, and we can also see what type of radio is implemented on the wireless access point. In this case, MyQuest 1159 uses an 802.11g radio. If I come up to 876 WLAN, you can see that I'm using an 802.11n radio. So thus far, we've shown you two different ways that you can connect to a wireless network. In Windows 7, you can use the option that we looked at down here, connect to a network. We pointed out the wireless icon in the system tray, but there's a third option as well over here in Network and Sharing Center called Manage Wireless Networks. I'm going to click on that option. And when I do, all of the different profiles that have been defined for wireless networks on this host are displayed. And for each of these profiles, the type of wireless network that it's configured to connect to is identified by this icon. If you see an icon like this where you have a couple of computers connecting to a wired network, that indicates that this is an infrastructure wireless network. In other words, it uses a wireless access point. Now, there may be situations, they're kind of rare because I don't think very many folks do this, but there may be situations where someone has set up an ad hoc wireless network where there is no wireless access point. Instead, the wireless network cards connect directly with each other, forming a type of mesh radio network, in which case you would see three separate computer screens connected in a triangle, indicating that's an ad hoc network. Now, if I want to modify the properties of an existing profile, I can select it here and then go up to Adapter Properties, and I can configure various settings such as IP settings. As you can see, it's configured to use DHCP currently. I could come up here and configure my wireless adapter itself. For example, I could update my driver if I needed to. If I want to change the properties of the profile itself, I can right-click on it and then select Properties. And in this interface, I can specify whether or not it should be connected to automatically or not. I can specify that I want to connect to a more preferable network if available. I can specify that I'm going to connect to this network even if it's not broadcasting its SSID, which we set up earlier. I can also go over here to Security and configure what type of security this wireless network uses, as well as the encryption type and the security key. In addition, I can also use this screen to remove a profile. If for some reason I don't want to use this wireless profile anymore, I could click on it and select Remove. Or if I wanted to add an additional profile, I could do that right here by clicking on Add. Here's the icon I was telling you about earlier for the ad hoc network. These are rarely used. I don't think I've ever run into an ad hoc network, frankly. Almost all the networks I've ever dealt with have always been infrastructure networks such as this. If I wanted to add a new network, I would first of all specify which type of network it is, whether it's an ad hoc or an infrastructure network. Let's go ahead and do this one. And when I do, I just simply configure the various parameters that we talked about earlier. The network name. Let's connect to another wireless network, the NTI network. We will use WPA2 pre-shared key, and we'll hide our characters as we type. And I'm going to turn this option off to start the connection automatically. But I am going to turn the option on to connect to the network even if it's not broadcasting. Click Next. And we've successfully added another wireless network profile. Click Close. And here you can see I have two. 876 WLAN connects automatically, whereas NTI I must connect to manually. That's it for this demonstration. In this demo, we talked about